It's just religion. It's just religion.
Hello and welcome to RS in 5 or Less, Religious Studies in Manageable Chunks. And today we're thinking about the use and abuse of the environment. Now the question is, at what point does use of the environment turn into abuse of the environment? Now one of the issues that we have when talking about this topic is that there's no one definite answer. Some people would say that any use of the environment has to involve some abuse. Other people would say that there's no such thing as abuse of the environment. We are given the world and we are the most successful creature, so we can do what we like with it. This doesn't really help us when it comes to how we should live our own lives. Our own morality has to center on what we actually believe is abuse and trying to avoid that. So, for example, is deforestation abuse? Is plastic pollution abuse? Is the use of animals for meat abuse? Is the use of animals for milk or leather abuse? Is the extraction of oil from the ground so we can power our homes and power our infrastructure, is that abuse? Or are all these just uses? One of the questions we have to ask is, in the future, will future generations judge us positively or negatively for how we are treating the environment? There is a sense in which I as an individual can do very little, but there is a different sense that I as an individual can only do my part. And if each individual does their part, then communities and societies will change on a macro scale. For a bit of an extension, you should look up the 2016 Paris Agreement about limiting global warming to 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels. So, what can I as an individual do in order to prevent the abuse of the environment while still using it appropriately? Well, here are a few thoughts. Turn off lights that aren't being used. Choose products that have recyclable packaging. These ones.
Come on.
Use your own shopping bags when going shopping. If going short distances, don't use the car. Use public transport or walk instead.
Dad, what are you doing?
Saving the world. We could eat less meat or no meat at all. Delicious. So, what are some religious teachings about this? In the book of Genesis, chapter 2, verse 15, we read, "Then the Lord placed the man in the Garden of Eden to cultivate it and guard it. And he said to him, 'You may eat of the fruit of any of the trees in the garden.'" This seems to imply that humans, represented by Adam and Eve, were given the ability and the authority to take stuff from nature, to use the environment. So does that mean we can use them and abuse them as we want? Maybe. But in the book of Leviticus, when it is talking about property rights, we read in Leviticus 25:23 that your land must not be sold on a permanent basis because you do not own it. It belongs to God, and you are like foreigners who are allowed to make use of it. This seems to tie in with the concept of stewardship, i.e., God continues to own the land, the birds, the fish, the cattle, and we get to use it and look after it, but it is not ours. Now, some questions for consideration. What does it mean to use the environment well? What does it mean to abuse the environment? Does a religious person have a moral duty to look after the environment, or is it something that they should get around to? Is this a 21st century consideration, something that people from the 19th century and before would laugh at? Or is this something that has always been the case and we're just feeling the pressure of this emergency at the moment?